Now for the other half of the updates. So, the other big, massive, life altering change that I have gone through is I have a committed long term partner for the first time in several years. We just had our 1 year anniversary at the beginning of July. She was recently separated from her partner. They had just moved back to their home state, and she had stayed in Colorado. And then one of my besties, she started going to a new dispensary and was like, oh my God, there's this girl. You have to see this girl. You have to meet her. I think she'd be perfect for you. And I was like, okay, well, just, give her my socials, tell her to slide into my DMs. I didn't have a med card at the time, so I couldn't go inside. So I was like, just give her my info. I'm happy to talk to somebody. Because I was open to dating, but I was just not feeling the apps. I was like, I'm going to meet somebody through the normal course of my life, and it'll happen when it happens. I'm not going to sit on the apps and trash my self-esteem like that. So she keeps saying, oh, I gotta meet this girl. Finally drags me in with her one day and was like, look, you can sit in the waiting room outside. I will go get her and bring her out to you. And I was like, cool. So then I'm sitting there, and this blur of a human storms through, like obviously in a hurry, back from lunch break, I would assume. But storms through, and it was just this big, punky, black blur with blonde hair, and I was like, I hope that's the person I'm supposed to be meeting, because that's energy that I'm into. And sure enough, she came back out. Yeah, it was her. We, swapped pronouns and friended each other on Facebook or whatever, and we're starting talking, and we talked for a little while before we actually started dating. But then we go out for our first date. We go to this kava bar, and I think kava is awesome. I had never had it before, but I was like, sure, let's do something fun, new. That'll be great. No big deal. I'll get coffee if I get scared, And it ended up being really fun. She doesn't like it, though, as much. So we were both sitting there just giggly, kind of goofy. And we ended up going out to sit in her car and, do the Colorado mountain high thing. And so we are sitting out there for literally hours. This is one of those, 7-hour dates. And I was like, yeah, this is usually an indicator of a good connection, good chemistry on a first date. Even folks that I ended up not dating after a good date like that are usually really good friends of mine for years and years after that. I have multiple good friends that started out as a date, and then we just kind of ended up just being friends and hanging out. But this was different. This was, I am very, very into you in a way that I have not felt about anybody in probably more than a decade. When I got divorced in 2019, I really did think at that point, there was no way I was ever going to get married again. I didn't even think that I would live with a partner again. I was pretty sure I was going to need to maintain my own separate domicile in order to date somebody long term. And with her, it was so different though, because at that point I had done so much work in therapy to process through my trauma. I had had the K treatments through the pain clinic that had significantly helped with my PTSD and my depression, as well as my pain levels. And so I was just in a real good headspace, and I was like, I'm really, really into this person, and I'm just getting green and yellow flags back from them. You know, we've talked about the things that I know because of all of my deconstruction work in therapy of like what's important for me to feel special in a relationship, to feel valued in a relationship. What kind of connection do I need? What kind of support do I need in a long-term connection? You know, what are my values when it comes to, you know, I mean, I've been polyamorous for my whole life, but rarely dated more than two people because it's too much to schedule and too many things going on and I get overwhelmed and it's just not good. But even with that, I was like, this feels different. Like, I really kind of want to just be monogamous with you. And for the first time in my life, that's not scary. And it's not because you're necessarily different, but it's because I'm different. And I don't mean that in any way to say that, like, people who are polyamorous have trauma and so therefore they can't commit, blah, blah, blah. That's not at all what I'm getting at. What I'm saying is that, like, there was a component for me specifically because of the BPD and the attachment issues that I had to where commitment was terrifying for me, especially after the first divorce and then even more so after the second divorce. And so being able to conceive of allowing myself to be that vulnerable again was for several years something that I could not really process. And so the concept of being able to be monogamous and not feel stifled or constricted or whatever, I worried would be an issue. I didn't know that it would be an issue, but I worried that it would be an issue. And so I wanted to make sure that, you know, I was good. I was secure in who I am, who I want to be, how I want to move through the world, etc. And because that's really where most of the relationship issues that I've gotten into over the years stem from, because I am not fully aware of what I need or how I need to ask for things or what boundaries I need to enforce or how do I adjust boundaries with people where I thought one thing was okay and then I'm like, actually I need to revise that, and how do I communicate those things and enforce them and whatnot. And so that was something that I really didn't have the tools or practice to feel confident in myself to be able to solidly stay in who I am rather than doing the maladaptive stuff that I did in previous relationships where I kind of adopted whatever my partner wanted me to be, at least in certain aspects. And so with being able to be so much more secure, you know, I've always kind of figured I was like ambi-amorous. So, you know, depending on the context of the connection that I'm in, I could be happy polyamorous. I could be happy monogamous. I could be happy going back and forth. Who knows? We'll just kind of, you know, roll with it and see how it goes. And so with getting into this new place where I feel so empowered in myself, it's definitely a situation where, because I know myself so much more, I can be such a better partner in this particular situation. And so as we have now finished 1 year together and her divorce is almost signed, sealed, and delivered, I should have an update here in the next few weeks about my proposal. I'm going to make an honest woman out of her. I get to do the whole thing with the ring and the getting on the one knee and all that stuff. I have cahoots and conspirations with friends who are going to help out with photos and stuff during the whole thing. It's gonna be a whole thing and I'm very, very excited about it. But it's been kind of a long time coming.